So although the Athenians did not yet have the reinforcements that Nicias requested in his letter to Athens in 414 BC, the Athenians still were able to maintain their campaign presence near Syracuse, and the Spartans and the Syracusans, despite their combined power, were not yet able to oust the Athenians from the Syracusan environs. So basically the war at Syracuse bogged down. However, in the high-flying spirit that the Athenians had for the campaign, even with this letter, the Athenians now became much more encouraged to go after the Spartans. And in fact, their erstwhile allies, the Argives, got on their case to take advantage of the Spartans' distraction at Syracuse to start reattacking the harbors all around the Peloponnesus in order to re-engage the Spartans in war. For a time, the Athenians had resisted this because they had not wanted to violate the Peace of Nicias. But at this critical opportunity, when the Athenians thought they had the Spartans at a disadvantage, they finally re-engaged the Spartans in war. And as a consequence, in 414 BC, the war effectively got underway. And the Athenians did not get all that dispirited about the effort out in Syracuse. Even after the letter of Nicias came, the Athenians, if anything, became all the more enthusiastic to keep it going, according to the historian Thucydides. One piece of evidence to reflect this high-spiritedness on the part of the Athenians is Aristophanes' comic play Birds, which comes out at this time, which we discussed in Classics 391. Birds is the creation of a new city up in the clouds that ends up reflecting closely on Athens, because it was created by two people who fled from Athens, attempting to find a new life that wasn't full of all the political troubles that the Athenians had shown. So this city is created in the clouds and ends up acting in a very Athenian-like way by essentially cutting off sacrifices coming up from humans up to the gods out of Mount Olympus. So effectively, the gods on Mount Olympus are put under siege, and they end up having to make a treaty with this new city. It's called Cloud Cuckooville. As a result, this city becomes the supreme tyranny over all the world, effectively. So that's the kind of high-spiritedness the Athenians were showing at this time. As, of course, we already well know, it turns out to be unjustified. All right, now let's cast ourselves back to Syracuse. And now the Athenian reinforcements actually get there. And not surprisingly, the Syracusans and the Spartans are sent into a state of panic. Now, although it took some time for the Syracusans and Spartans to organize themselves, they did eventually hit upon the idea of trying to build a blockade across the entrance to the great harbor in order to trap the Athenian ships. But although it was a narrow entrance and still had a considerable amount of space, and for the ships to get organized enough to build this blockade was going to take some effort on the part of the Syracusans and the Spartans to do. So the Athenians were able to get there before the blockade actually got built and got on shore. So again, the Syracusans were now in a very bad way, potentially, under siege by the Athenians. So when the Syracusans actually started to build the blockade, the Athenians tried to rush out and stop it, but they were unsuccessful, and the Syracusans kept it going. So Demosthenes and Eurymedon, the two Athenian generals, quickly organized a counterstrike. And the tactic they were going to use was the one that you saw described in Chapter 7 of your World of Athens textbook, the periplus, which was the surrounding tactic. Because the harbor was circular, the two sides of the fleet were going to break up and go around the edge of the harbor, basically rope in the Syracusans into the center of the harbor, and then move in order to catch them. It was kind of similar to what the Athenian general Phormio had done back in 430 BC in the Gulf of Corinth. But here it was unsuccessful because although Demosthenes was able to get his section around the edge of the harbor, Eurymedon somehow got into confusion as he was trying to move around, and he got caught about halfway around the edge by the alert Syracusans, who eventually were able to chase him down and defeat him in battle. He was actually killed. As a consequence, the Athenians fled and went back to the coast, and the Syracusans and Spartans had the opportunity to continue the blockade. Remarkably, however, that didn't happen because the Syracusans, who were known for doing this, went off and got drunk in the ecstasy of their victory. So as a result, Nicias and Demosthenes now had an opportunity to rush off and call off the rest of the expedition. Now, Nicias was initially doubtful about doing that, as he had been for the whole time, because he still had hopes that his spies inside Syracuse were going to carry out the betrayal of the city. But word must have finally gotten back to him that that was not going to happen, because at last, when Demosthenes proposed leaving, and it happened that there was a full moon that night, which meant that there would be full light for carrying out the journey, at long last, Nicias conceded. And for that night, because the harbor was not yet blockaded, the Athenians had the unexpected opportunity to get on their ships and flee. Had they done so, of course, that would have meant that although the expedition would have been a failure, the actual loss of life and equipment would have been greatly reduced. Well, it did not turn out that way. Come back to the next video and you'll find out why.